How would you like me to start it, bro? Like the
How do you want to?
yeah. So we finally got you on the show, bro. Appreciate you for coming.
No doubt. Thank you for coming all the way out here. You know, that was impressive that you would come all the way. Where you from?
Midland, Texas.
Midland, Texas?
Yeah.
Come all the way from Midland, Texas. You could have called me. I was in San Antonio this weekend.
Man, bro, Midland is like 5 hours away from that.
Oh, it's 5 hours from San Antonio. Okay.
Bro, that would have been perfect because right after that, I'm finna do 3 years in San Antonio.
Yeah. Okay. You making your rounds?
Yeah, so yeah. But like, you're the real Rick Ross, right?
The real one, the only one. That other guy, his name is William Roberts.
William Roberts, bro. That shit is crazy, bro. Like, how can he steal your name? Like, that's some crazy shit.
Well, you know, I don't know how anybody would take somebody else's name anyway. For me, all my life is I wanted to be myself, special. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to make a name for myself. I didn't want to take a name that was already special or already had momentum and then use that. But, you know, this is a different age. You know, this is not like it was in the old days, you know. Now it's the age of fake it. You know, it was fake it till you make it. Now it's just fake it. You know, so it ain't even about making it anymore. But with me, it always been about making it. You know, not acting like you made it. You know, and not made it. I want to actually make it.
You were in prison for a really long time, like 20 years or something?
Yeah, I did. I did 20 years and 3 months with 2 different stints. You know, I went to prison. I did 5 years and like 8 months, and then I got out for 6 months, and I caught another case. You know, I went right back.
We're gonna go into that, bro. That shit was crazy. Like that's
like the worst. That's the worst. You never want to, because it's like starting all over again from the beginning, and it was even worse the second time. You know, but like you said, when you get ready to go into it, I'll tell you what you want to know about it.
Where were you born?
I was born in Tyler, Texas.
Y'all had like a little house in Clark, Texas?
Yeah.
Or Mark, Texas.
Yeah, it was about big as this office right here where we stayed. So it was very small. It was humble. My mom was a humble person. You know, she picked cotton. Her dad was a sharecropper. So, you know, she was right at the edge of slavery. You know, probably one of the first generations from our side to be free.
Was your grandparents, were they were they slaves?
They were sharecroppers.
Oh, sharecroppers.
And I'm not sure if they were slaves at one time, you know, because they could have been, you know, but we just didn't know. You know, I was so young that I didn't know the questions to ask, you know, and I never asked my mom. But you know what? I got an auntie and an uncle that's still alive, and that's a question I'm going to ask them. You know, which one of our relatives was slaves? Thank you for that. Thank you for giving me the idea to ask that question. Because that was a question I never asked my mom, I never asked any of my uncles or aunties. But it's definitely something that I should know. Was my grandfather and grandmother slaves?
Right after the slavery, they gave off land to people? Is that what happened?
No, what my grandfather did is they worked the white guy's property. You know, the white guy owned the property and they would go out and work it, and then they would get a piece of the pie. That's what they call sharecropping. Really, it's almost slavery again, but you know, at least you get some money and you don't have to stay where they tell you to stay and eat what they tell you to eat.
You got to experience white bathrooms, white restrooms.
I saw black and white waiting rooms, bathrooms, fountains. I saw those.
How was that? Bro, nobody in this generation, they don't know about that, and nobody speaks about that.
Well, I was still a kid, you know what I'm saying? I was probably about 6 years old, you know, so it really didn't ring a lot of bells to me, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, this is just the way it is, you know, like, I don't understand that there was people that lived different than us, you know, that didn't live under the same strengths that we lived under. So it really didn't bother me, you know, when I went in and it was this. I had gotten hurt, and my mom took me to the hospital. And when I went to the hospital, I saw this big, pretty color TV, and it had a sign on it, but I couldn't read anyway. You know, I couldn't read till I was 28 years old in prison. So I just went and turned the TV on, and this white nurse just scolded me, and you know, now I look back at it, you know, my mom didn't say much probably because she was a white lady. You know, back in Tyler, where I was from, even in the 80s, they were still calling white people sir and ma'am, and the white people would address them by their first name.
Was that mandatory?
Not mandatory, but you know, some things don't have to be mandatory. There's a saying, you know, an elephant, they put this great big change on him. And after a while, they can take the chain off and put a little piece of rope. And the elephant won't go any further than what that rope will allow him to go. When the rope tightens up, the elephant stops. Because his mind has been conditioned that he can't break that change. So when you condition somebody's mind, you don't need to actually pound that on them, you know, because they already been programmed that this is our limit. We don't go past that limit. So it's a saying, you know, you ain't got to tell black people to go to the back door. They just gonna go on their own because they've been trained to actually do that.
Where was this at?
Tyler, Texas. You know, Texas was the last state to free the slaves.
That, bro, I lived there 20 years. I did not know. I didn't even know that.
You heard of Juneteenth?
Yeah.
Juneteenth is when the slaves found out that slavery was over. That's why it's celebrated. In Texas, the only place to celebrate it because they was the only ones that were still slaves. That's why they call it the Lone State.
That's crazy. I did not know that like Texas even like had slaves and like shit like that.
You didn't know Texas had slaves?
I barely started like reading into shit, right?
Oh my goodness. Texas is one of the worst, man.
Yeah. It's really understandable like now that I know that and it makes sense, you know, how people treat like, bro, I'm Mexican, bro, like they treat me different, you know? Yeah. So now that shit is understandable for real.
Yes.
For sure. You moved to Los Angeles in 1965?
64.
64? Yeah,
I think it was more like 64. Maybe late 63, early 64, something like that.
Do you remember those days?
A little. I can remember where we stayed. You know, I can remember my uncle. You know, sleeping with my uncle. I can remember my uncle coming in drunk. You know, I can remember playing in the yard one time. We were playing with the water hose in the yard, and we had our shoes off, and I stepped on a big piece of glass, and I cut my foot really bad. I can remember that. I can remember my first day of school. You know, little stuff like that there. Not everything about it, but there's always moments that trigger certain thoughts.
At 5 years old, that uncle you're talking about, you seen him get killed?
Yes, my mom killed my uncle.
What was the reason for that? I've seen your documentary, but for people that don't know yet.
If they ain't seen my documentary, I don't know what's wrong with them. They wanted to hold somewhere. They better wake up. We came in, me and my mom came in, I'm not sure where we had been that night, but we was out, you know, it was late, and we came in, and my auntie and my uncle was in the kitchen arguing, so my mom went straight to the kitchen where they was at, and when we got there, and I followed her, you know, because that was my world, that was my best friend, my mom was my everything. We saw my auntie was bleeding, and my uncle was standing there with a knife, cursing. So my mom ran over, and she started wrapping her arms and stuff. Excuse me. I just come from the tennis court, man. My kids ran me. We ran like 8 sprints, man. You know, my kids are probably gonna be, my 2 babies are probably just gonna save my life because they're gonna make me exercise. They both play tennis, and you know I love tennis, and so now they got me running with them too. You know, we hit tennis balls, and then after we finished, we ran some sprints. So when we got there, my uncle was standing on my auntie, and she was bleeding, you know, where he had been cutting her, stabbing her. So my mom jumped in the middle and was like, leave her alone, leave her alone. Started wrapping up her bandages with towels, and then my uncle was still standing there, and my mom told him to say, go on out of here, leave her alone. So my mom was able to get my auntie and me out the house. And we was running down the alley, and we got away for a minute. But eventually, my uncle caught back up with us. And my mama told him, don't come no closer. And, he came closer and she shot him. One shot. And when I walked by him, I could hear him gasping for air, like he was trying to breathe and whatnot. But my mom got me out of there quick. She didn't waste no time getting me out.
Like, the whole reason that I asked you that question, all that traumatized, is that the reason that you didn't really focus on learning and stuff like that?
Well, it could have been, right, because I was right at the age where you start school. And my mom went to jail for a while. And here I was in a big city, basically I felt I was by myself, like it would be nights, man, that I would cry because I missed my mama. I didn't know where my mama was.
Oh.
And I don't really know these people. I mean, I know they're my family, but I don't really know you. Like I ain't been around you, it was just me and my mom and my brother. And my brother was still in Texas, so it was kind of just, being by yourself.
Your brother stayed in Strawberry, Texas?
He stayed in Texas, when we left. He went to stay with my father.
In Strawberry, Texas?
Is that the name of Tyler? I know Tyler.
Tyler.
Tyler, Texas. Who called it Strawberry?
I thought,
No, Rose.
Oh, Rose.
Rose City.
Rose City, okay.
That's where they grow all the roses at. They do grow a lot of.
Oh, my bad. I understood strawberries.
Close strawberry roses. They go red.
Yeah. Your first hustle? What was your first hustle?
Bottles. My neighbor's bottles. Back in the day, they used to give you 5 cents, 10 cents for a bottle. Well, I would go around to all my neighbors and collect their bottles, and I would take them to the store and come back and split the change with them. That was my first hustle. Then I went from there to hustling aluminum cans. I went from aluminum cans to cutting grass, and from cutting grass to washing cars.
How old were you? Like whenever you were doing that?
Probably 5, 6 years old. I've been living in LA for a while. We had moved over on 87th Street. No, I was older than that. Let me see. I think I was in the 4th grade. I was in the 4th grade when I started hustling the bottles.
At age 11, you wanted to be a crip?
Yeah, my 6th grade year in high school. I mean, in elementary school. We were sitting in class one day, right, and just a normal day at school, and then all of a sudden somebody was like, "Man, look at all these guys out here!" And all the kids ran to the window, and we looking out, and it was like hundreds. To us, it felt like hundreds. Probably was only like 20, 30, but to us, it felt like hundreds. And I later found out they was Crips.
How did you feel about that? Like, what made you interested and wanted to be one of them?
Well, I like the camaraderie. When you're hanging out with all the guys hanging out, and they was together, and they bonded. So, I wanted that. I wanted that power. I don't know, I've always wanted power. Since I was young, I wanted power. I didn't never want to be average, I wanted to be something special always. And all my life, I wanted to be special.
You are something special, bro. The book that you made, Tookie Williams, was the reason you made your book?
Yeah, kind of. I was sitting in prison, and they were getting ready. They were talking about executing Tookie. He was up for execution, and they had an article on him in the paper, and I was reading the article. It was before my eyes went bad. I used to go read the paper every day, and I was reading the paper about him being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, and I was like, wow. Tookie Williams, the guy that used to be in Manchester Park, Crip, got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. What if his crime wasn't so heinous? They probably would have let him out of prison. So after I thought about that, I was like, well, if they give you a life sentence without the possibility of parole, because that's what I was looking at. I was looking at life sentence without the possibility of parole. I said, maybe you could do something and get a Nobel Peace Prize. And it just came to me that I should write a book. And so I started. I've been formulating an idea in my head about a book, you know, because I thought my story was interesting, you know. I thought it was interesting just with crooked cops, you know. I mean, how often do you know cops, you go in and lounge search warrants, lie to judges, fabricate evidence, move evidence around, you know. Say for instance, like, they come in and they found the dope outside in the car, but they know if they say it was in the car that it won't stick to me, you know, because they can't put the car with me. So they take the dope out the car and put it inside the building where they could say that I had access to it. They steal money. So I was like, this is a fascinating story. You know, I mean, we hear cops before where they work with the dope dealers and whatnot, but we never hear of cops actually fabricating evidence and so forth. So I felt that my case was special, and I've been wanting to write a book to it.
What is that first one called?
Rick Ross Untold Autobiography.
That's the one that we're talking about right now?
Yeah, that's the book.
So when you wrote that book, you thought you wasn't going to get out, huh?
I didn't think I would ever get out. And so the book is kind of like, Tookie wrote a book about gangbanging, you know, how you get into gangs, what the gang life is all about. So I was like, wow, if he wrote a book about gangbanging, then I should write a book about drugs, the drug game, and that's how it came about. So you could say Tookie influenced it somewhat, but yeah, he did.
At what age did you start playing tennis?
I started playing tennis about 12, maybe 13, just before I turned 13. Remember, you know, when I was that young, I never read a book, I didn't keep notes, and I kind of just did it off the cuff. And I have did so many different things since I was 13 that I never kept track of, you know, like I just didn't write things down. I didn't take pictures, you know, like I just wasn't that type of person, you know. Well, we wasn't financially able, you know, we didn't have one of those automatic cameras and all that stuff, you know. We were on welfare. You know, I've actually had food stamps, you know, where my mom would send me to the store with food stamps to go buy food. So I'm really come from a different cloth. You know, I'm one of those ones when you say from the bottom to the top. You know, I'm probably one of the few millionaires that was on food stamps that became a millionaire. You know, Elon Musk never had food stamps. I bet you that. Or Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, you know, those guys never was on food stamps. So it's a little different, and the reason I say it's a little different because some of it fall on your parents. You know, who your parents are, what they did, what they knew, has a significant influence on who you become. If that makes sense to you.
You were playing so much tennis that you didn't even see lowriders. You didn't see like the fancy cars that were just running around LA.
Well, when I played tennis, I was kind of one-track mind. You know, I get on the bus, go to the tennis courts, stay all night. When I come to South Central LA, it was time to eat, take a bath, and go to bed. After I stopped playing tennis, my guys talked me into going up to Church's Chicken to the street races. And when I went there, it was like I never saw these cars before. You know, this was like something new to me. And I was like, oh my goodness, look at these cars. They got these paint jobs. These paint jobs glittered. And they had little like stars in them. And then the girls were just beautiful. And like, oh man, I want one of those. The car and the girl. You sell me the whole package.
In 1988, at 18 years old, you had a chop chop?
At 78.
Oh, 78.
78, I had a chop shop.
Oh shit, I got that wrong. Hold on.
That's okay. That's all right. That's a lot.
In 1978, at 18 years old, you had a chop shop?
Yes. after I go to the street races, I start asking all the guys with the blow riders how did they get their cars, you know. And then I run into this one named Dirty Benny, and Dirty Benny told me to come by his house the next day, and I did, and he showed me how to steal a car. That's how he got his low rider, by stealing cars, and I joined right in with him.
You bought your first car for $100?
I bought my first car for $100. My first lowrider was a '66 Chevy convertible. It had no motor, no transmission, no seats, no top, and I paid $100 for it.
That chop that you had, you were able to put 20 cars in?
A lot of cars. Maybe on the inside, maybe like 12, and then they had like an outside lot too that we parked cars on. So with total maybe 20 cars, maybe 20, 15, something like that.
Whenever you heard like cops and stuff, that wasn't even for you, huh?
No, that wasn't on me, man. I thought that was on me, you know. I thought I was doing some big stuff, you know, like, you know, I'm a square, right? You know, I'm a square now. You know, I'm a tennis player hanging out with bad boys. You know, like the homies have been doing this. You know, they've been doing this shit for a while, but I ain't been doing this shit. I've been on the tennis court with white shorts on and little tight ass shorts on. You know what I'm saying? Hanging out with motherfuckers that was going to college. You know, UC Santa Barbara, San Diego State, Irvine University. You know, these are the kind of people I've been hanging out with. But now I'm in the hood. I'm hanging out with gangsters. I'm hanging out with dudes who had committed murders and had shot at people and you know, took cars at gunpoint. These are the guys that I'm still hanging out with. So my life had really been a 360. So I was still a square, man. I didn't know. So when I heard the helicopter, you know, circling over, I was like, oh, they got me. You know, they got me. I'm done.
And whenever you ran outside, like, what is the view? What did you see?
Man, they had cops everywhere.
Like right in front of you, or were they like pretty far and you ran the opposite way?
The cops didn't see me at first. You know, they just had the place surrounded. But I was so shook and so novice at the game that I couldn't understand that they wasn't paying me any attention. They didn't pay me attention until the helicopter saw me running. The helicopter saw me running, and then they put the cops on me. So, no, I gave myself up.
That time you got charged with 7 counts?
Yeah, they called me counting the cars. I had 7 cars. And we had cars cut in two, half in two. We cut the whole car in half. You know, we didn't roll them back. Sometimes we would roll the car back on the street, you know, but usually we didn't roll it back on the street. You know what I mean? Like, say we would take the front end, the doors, and then we would take the car and put it back on the street. You know, like that.
The front end, you mean like chop off like the whole motor thing?
Yeah, not the motor part, because the car would still run.
Oh, okay.
And I'll be driving cars down the street with no front end, no doors. I'll be sitting on the tray, no seats. I'll be driving down the street, and then I just jump out and run to a certain spot with a weight car, and I'll just jump in the car and take off. But yeah, but most of the time we would just chop them up all the way in little bitty pieces and just haul them to the mill.
Right now your plan is to take over boxing?
Yeah, I want to be the king of boxing. I want to be the king of boxing, the king of marijuana, and the king of the music industry. And a fashion mogul too, a clothing mogul. You know, I want to have like a big clothing line. So those 4 industries, those are going to be my 4 industries.
Right now you have one boxer, Saul Martinez?
No, I got like 6 or 7 boxers. Yeah, I got Deshaun Champ, Kid Austin, Kedar, Alvin Vermeer, Napier Charles, and I'm getting ready to sign about 6 more fighters. I'm getting ready to sign my first Hispanic fighter.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Where's he from?
San Antonio, Texas.
Oh,
Yeah, I tried to sign Saul Rodriguez, but And that's my boy too, you know. Saul is one of the ones who really got me really like locked into boxing. But he's a little nervous about letting me help him. A lot of people are, you know, they look at my background, and I really don't have a background in boxing. But you know, I look at boxing as just another business. It don't matter what business it is. When you do good business, you're just gonna rise to the top.
So there's about like 4 shows after your story. It's 100 kilos, or like cracking the system. That's yours.
It was mine. They stole it.
What? How does that work, bro? Like,
I don't know, man. We had a contract and everything, but we went to arbitration court, and this judge literally gave him the whole documentary and told him he gave me rights to it, but I really don't have no rights. I have no right to edit. No right to accounting. You know, they don't have to show me how much money they made off of it. You know, which is, to me, it means that you have no ownership. You know, I learned a valuable lesson. You know, whoever controls the footage is a controlling party. So whenever you're doing a film and you think that you're part owner, you better control part of the film. Y'all got that from me.
but like you did invest money in that, right?
I invest money in it, small amount, you know, which we didn't spend much money to produce that film. That film was done really, really cheap. You know, it was really done on the fly, you know, off the cuff. So to have the kind of success that it has had is a testimony to myself.
Snowfall, what is the reason that like they stole your story,
bro? I don't know, man. It was crazy. You know, first I was kind of, and I still was a little upset with John Singleton about the whole ordeal. But I understand now that John probably went to the studios and told him, hey, man, I got this great story. I got Rick Ross. Because if you go to his page, his post with me, it's a picture of me and him. And we're hugging and we're taking a picture with the book. And he said, Rick Ross, great story, Snowfall coming soon. So when you look at that, it gives you an idea that he already had a plan on doing Snowfall. So, I don't know. It's. I thought it would have been better with me than without me, but a lot of times the studios don't want guys in my position to actually work on the sets.
Well, like even though they're doing that, bro, like your story is amazing, you know, and like, aren't you finna make a movie?
I'm making a movie and a TV series right now. I'm in the progress of both of them. The movie's been financed. The TV series, we still have some more negotiation to do.
They gave you $30 million for the movie?
We got $30 million to do the movie. Yes.
How was that, bro? Like, how?
Independently too, man.
That shit is crazy.
Yeah, I don't have no background in movies.
Honestly, bro, I was gonna ask you, if you don't have nobody to play Danilo.
You want that, bro?
Real shit, let me play it.
Alright.
Real
What? You still got to go through the casting agent, but I definitely get you in the front of the line.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you finna be a part of the Millionaires Club.
Can you explain that? Like, I don't know.
Well, the Millionaires Club. I was just thinking one day, right? I was just thinking, and I was like, wow, you about to be a millionaire again. You know, you about to be like just crazy rich. And I was like, you about to be crazy rich, man. Ain't that exciting? And I was like, yeah, it's exciting, man. And I was thinking how I enjoyed the struggle. You know, the struggle has been great. And I was like, what about all your homies? You fuckers ain't got nothing. You gotta do something for them. You want to be going and everywhere you go, you gotta feed them, you gotta get the car for them, you gotta pay their plane ticket. Why not help them become millionaires like you did in the dope game? Do the same thing that you did in the dope game. Do it now and lead the legit business. You can do it. And that's how the Millionaire Club idea came up. That I want to do the same thing for other people. And I was thinking if I did it for 200 people and I teach them, then they can go out and teach the mass. You know, because I remember a time, man, none of my friends wanted to sell drugs. They was like, oh man, you crazy, you selling cocaine, man. But after they saw me benefiting, you know, the house, the cars, the girls, you know, hotel rooms, the trips, and they was all like, man, I want to get down. And it was crazy.
Talking about houses, you have $50 houses, $100 houses, and like county houses, stash houses. Just different sort of thing.
Yeah, well, you know, it just made sense to me because you're going to sell more 20s and 50s than you are anything else. More people are going to come by those. So you wouldn't want where you sell ounces at people to be coming by 20s and 50s because there's going to be too much traffic. You can do an ounce house, and an ounce house might last 2 years because nobody hardly comes over. Plus, the clientele is a little more hustler. You know, there's more hustler types. And yeah, we came up with this method where we graduated people. Like they would go to the 50 house if they started to buy $1,000 worth of 50s, then they would get to go to the ounce house. And you know, they do the same thing at the ounce house. They start to buy 10 or 20, then they would get to go to the key house.
Bro, you know nobody does that, right? Like nobody ever works like that. I promise you, nobody ever thought of just like, oh yeah, there's a 50 house, there's a 100 house. Like they don't be thinking like that, you know.
Well, you got to graduate your people because you don't want to keep. If a person is pushing their way up, you don't want to hold them down. You want to allow them to be able to benefit off of everything that they work for, you know. And that's what I did. I allowed them to graduate, and all my guys knew that if the guy started to do good, like one of my favorite customers was this kid named Little J, and I remember when I first meet this kid, right? This kid's about 14 years old, and he has a brand new Corvette, and he's coming to my spot, and I'm like, man, who is this little dude? And he's like, man, that's Little J. And I said, Little J. I said, what's up, Little J? I said, what you doing? He said, man, he said, I copy your format. I said, what? He said, yeah. So I said, where your spot at? He said, I'm in Compton. I said, all right, I'm coming to your spot. So I get in my car and I follow Little J to Compton. And this kid's spot is identical to mine. You know, the way he got it set up, he got a guy in the front, grown men. He got grown men standing out, looking out, and he got the house barred up and everything, man, like just like me, man. It was crazy. And you know, I tell people when I first got to Lompoc USP, because I hadn't saw this kid. You know, I went on the run for a while, and like I just cut everybody off, so I hadn't saw this kid. But this kid was like, I think 19. He had his own Popeye's chicken, and like,
he bought a Popeye's chicken.
The guy's a genius. He's a genius. He was like a genius. You know what I'm saying? Like when we was in. So I'm walking down the hallway, right, and then this guy is like walking straight toward me, you know, like this here, and then we just like this, right? And
that's funny.
And I'm like looking at this dude, like, what's up, man? You know me or something? And he's like, you don't remember me? And I was like, nah. He's like, I'm Little J, and this guy done got like swole up, you know what I'm saying? So it was just amazing to see him there. And then to find out, you know, he graduated top of the college in his class from Berkeley University. You know, he went to college while he was there and got himself together. As soon as he got out of prison, he did a lot of time. The kid did a lot of time because he went to jail early. You know, some of the guys who really were successful went to jail early. He did like 30 years, I think. As soon as he got out, he started managing a Home Depot. Like immediately, boom. I bet right now, I haven't spoken to him in like 7-8 years, but I guarantee you he's so high up in Home Depot right now that it's crazy. I gotta give him a call. You made me think about it. But yeah, that's the way I ran my system, and he came through that system. He was one of the ones who came through that system where he went from buying a $50 rock to where he was buying multiple kilos. And you ain't gonna see this in Snowfall. They're not that smart, and that's one of the things that I really don't like about shows like Snowfall is that they show the black characters in more of a buffoon attitude, as if you know we don't want to watch smart black people. But we already showed that when we used to watch the Cosbys. You know, the Huxtables was a smart family. So I think that we will watch a show where the character shows some wits. You know, shows that he has to outwit so many different people, and I believe in my career I outwitted quite a few people.
Mike McLaurin was the person that gave you the 50 piece?
The first time, yeah.
Is that the first time you tried cocaine?
First time I tried it, first time I saw it other than on TV, was from Mike. Mike was kind of like my big brother. You know, he was somebody, he painted cars, he painted lowriders. That's how we met, because he painted lowriders. And when I met Mike, Mike might have been about 3, maybe 4 years older than I was. But you know, I was a young, you know, 17, 18-year-old. You know, I wasn't like some of my partners. They was like hardened 17-year-olds. You know, like they had already shot at people and been to juvenile hall, and you know, they wasn't
not regular.
They wasn't like me. You know, like if I called my little homie over who me and him was the same age, and but he was much harder. He wound up doing 40 years in prison. I mean, I think he was 18 years old and caught a robbery murder.
At 18? Got 40?
18 years old, got 40. No, he didn't get 40. I think he had natural life, but he wound up doing 40. It might have been a double murder. But what I'm saying is that these guys were hard dudes. You know, like they knew already. They knew how to steal, how to rob, and I didn't know none of that stuff. You know, I've been hitting the tennis ball, you know what I'm saying? All I wanted was a girlfriend.
You say you were playing tennis, and then you stopped playing tennis and you started selling cocaine?
Yeah, when they told me that, you know, I couldn't read or write, so they was like, well, you ain't going to college, you can't read or write. So after they told me that, I was like, fuck tennis, you know what I'm saying? That's my way out of it. I thought tennis was going to be my way out the ghetto, so I was done with tennis, man. I went to the streets, baby. You know what I'm saying? Let me go get some bread. I'm gonna go do what the girls like. The girls like to do it with the bread.
You dropped out at 12th grade?
I was in the 12th grade, but I shouldn't have been in the 12th grade because I couldn't read. I couldn't read anything. You know, I don't know how I did it, but you know, I figured out enough to pass the test for DMV, you know, to get my driver's license. I got my driver's license at 16. So I guess you could kind of say that I'm the kind of person that always got what I wanted. You know, I always got what I wanted. The things that I didn't want or that I didn't see was beneficial to me, you know, I didn't really pay attention to them. I didn't want them.
Is the teacher that's the person that will pay you $20 to play with the kid? With this kid?
No, that was Otis Smith.
Otis Smith.
Otis Smith is the guy that found Anita Baker. And Johnny Taylor, and Bobby Womack, and Rick James. So he used to pay me, he'd come pick me up in a Rolls Royce. I should have been the king of music. I was right there, man. I'm a knucklehead.
Who was the people that were telling you like not to mess with it?
Hip hop?
Yeah.
Otis was.
And was he involved in music?
He found Anita Baker.
Bro, then he was telling you so he could hit the lick.
No. He was in the R&B.
Oh, like
Bobby Womack, Johnny Taylor, Patti LaBelle. You know that he did Patti LaBelle's comeback album. I think with Bobby Womack. They did a record together. That was her comeback record. He did that record. But they was telling me hip hop wasn't fad. Hip hop had just came out. It was brand new. It was brand new at the time. Nobody was really doing hip hop. You know, none of the major record labels was doing hip hop. But he already had distribution. He knew how to distribute a record. He knew how to break it. He knew everything. He had Soul Train. He had you know, him and Don Cornelius was like this. You know, so he had it on lock.
There was a teacher that you were playing with, and then
Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher is the one that introduced me to the Nicaraguan connection. That's how I got to the guy that everybody on Snowfall thinks is just super secret guy, and the CIA sent him down. But Fisher is the one that made that introduction. And two, they got to go on it for Snowfall. They got to go and watch my podcast after the snow.
The Nicaraguans, bro, they were trying to get you to fly with 3 million.
Oh, they were trying to get me to go over to Mexico, bring my money to Mexico and buy the drugs. Cause they was bringing the drugs across the Mexico border. This was during the earthquake time. When they had the earthquake, they had the big earthquake. They was like, man, bring your money to Mexico now.
Hell no.
And we get a better price.
But it wasn't gonna be that. That's for sure, huh?
No, they wasn't gonna. I mean, we were tight. No, they made too much money with me.
Then why did you not want to go?
I was making good money right here. You know, I made good money right here in America, so I was like, why would I take my money out of town when I'm doing good right here? You know, I make $200,000-$300,000 profit every day, so I don't need no more money.
The CIA operative? That's what you're gonna call him?
They are CIA operative. He's an operative because they can't be CIA agents because they're from a foreign country and they don't have legal citizenship. So he can't legally be, if you don't have legal citizenship, you can't legally be a CIA agent. But you can be an operative, which really gives them more leeway than an agent, because an operative don't go by the same rules as an agent.
What's the difference?
Well, agent has to pass certain tests and stuff, but an operative don't have to do all that. The operative don't have to pass the test. He's not certified.
But wasn't he like government over there?
He was. In his country, he was government, but here, he's not government.
Oh, it don't work like that? Like if you're government?
No, you can't come from a foreign country. You know, he's still a foreigner. It would be like if somebody from Russia wanted to come over here and be a CIA agent. It would be tough. He's not gonna get the clearances. His
real name is Oscar Danilo Blandon Reyes.
Yeah, he got a long name.
Yeah.
Oscar Danilo Blandon Reyes.
He was funding the Contras rebels for the military war.
Yeah, he was the head of California.
You never knew about that, bro? Like that he was fighting a war or anything like that?
Yeah, I knew they were fighting a war, but fighting a war and working for the CIA are two different things. You know, I never tied in that that he were being backed by the CIA. You know, I just thought that it was a war that they were fighting in their country, and matter of fact, I thought that was against the United States government. I never knew that they were being backed by the United States government. Never crossed my mind.
It was the people that were helping him. It was George Bush Sr.,
George Bush Sr., Ronald Reagan, and Oliver North.
The reason I said George Bush Sr., so I'm from Midland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, bro, 11 minutes away from my house, the George W. Bush childhood home. So legit, bro, 11 minutes from my house, that's where that's at. And they named it after his son, right? But
oh yeah, they from Texas.
Well, they from the city I'm from.
Oh yeah, okay. They run Texas, yeah. They big oil guys.
I don't know, like it was just crazy as fuck to me that like it was that president was from the city that I'm from, and then I was able to interview. You know, that's what I thought that.
Maybe you should try to get an interview from the son.
Aren't they dead?
The son ain't dead.
No.
The senior's dead and the mom is dead.
They were using like they were using military planes to send weapons, and back they were sending cocaine.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. I wasn't privileged to that information.
Whenever you were a drug dealer, you didn't want people to know you were a drug dealer?
No, I wasn't a proud drug dealer. I mean, you know, I always had something. I wasn't ashamed of it, but I wasn't like how people now brag about being drug dealers. You know, I wasn't bragging about being a drug dealer. I wanted to do something else. You know, I wanted my legacy to to be something different. You know, I just didn't want this to be, you know, a typical drug dealer. Let me say that.
You almost got kidnapped?
Yeah. Well, technically, I was kidnapped.
Oh, they put you in the car?
Yeah, I got in the car, but I was able to wrestle the gun out of the guy's hand. I wasn't. He didn't move the car. We never started the car up or anything like that. But a kidnapping, you know, going technically by the law, is if they move you past, I think, 10 feet, is a kidnap. You know, like if you're in a restaurant and you're at the counter and they make you go in the back of the restaurant, that's a kidnap. If they just rob you right at the counter, just a regular robbery. You know, that's just robbery. But if I say, okay, go in the back of the room, in the mop closet, because that causes more trauma to the person. You know, when you take somebody in the back room, they think they finna be killed.
Oh, yeah.
So that causes more trauma. Then if you just, you know, I mean, it's already trauma that you got a gun in their face and you like, I'm finna, give me all the money. But if they just do it right there, take all the money, then that's just a robbery. But if they move you 10 feet, it becomes a kidnapping because it causes the person to have trauma.
So you know where like you didn't expose the CIA? It was Gary Webb that exposed them?
Yeah, Gary Webb did.
But like, did your story help California get marijuana legalized?
Some people said that.
I heard that. That's what I was like.
No, people said that when I the first time I went to a cannabis cup, they treated me like, well, they still treat me like a celebrity,
But isn't that crazy, bro? If that's true,
it is crazy.
Back
But I know what my case did do is my case showed light on our government. You know what they're capable of and what they would do, and and I guess the people started to say, you know what, we don't want you regulating us anymore. You know, we want to regulate ourselves. But you know what's even crazier is that I got a marijuana license.
That is insane. How did you get that?
Just went down and I fought for it. I went to the city, you know, with everybody else, and I marched and
they pulled you over with the 105,000.
Oh, when I was growing up, that's when I first started selling weed. You know, I first started selling weed, and I used to go up to Humboldt and get my weed because I couldn't get weed around here at a good price. So what I would do is I would drive 14 hours up the highway in Humboldt and get it. And I was doing that like 3 times a week, you know, driving 14 hours. I was working my ass off. And one thing about me is that I don't mind working. So I've been doing really well. You know, my money was growing. That time I had about maybe $130,000, $140,000. You know, and I was going back up to re-up. And I was driving up the highway, and the cop saw me, and I saw him at the same time, and I literally saw him. He told him to start his car up, and I was like, "Oh, this motherfucker pull me up." I had $105,000 in the trunk. It was me and little Steve. He pulled me over. He went to search the car. I told him no. Then he had us to get out the car, patting us down, and he took my cell phone. He said the dog alerted to my cell phone, meaning that somebody had touched weed on my phone. The dog alerted, and that gave him permission to search the car. So he searched the car, and he found my money, took my money. And gave me a conspiracy to sell marijuana, which is what allowed me to get my marijuana license.
They charging you $75,000 to talk to Glenda?
Yeah, Blandon.
Oh,
Blandon agreed to interview with me if I give him $75,000. So I want to raise the money because I want to interview him. I think that would be an interview that people would want to see. You know, me and him sit down and we talk about just everything that happened. You know, in the 80s. You know, he's never talked to nobody other than the DEA, and you know. So I want to know what would he say, you know, in the interview, man. Me and him sitting there, you know, just some questions I would like to ask him, you know. I don't know, I just felt funny, you know, the day that he testified against me, and the courts asked him, did he see me in the courtroom, you know. and he really made like sure that the courts knew that he knew me. You know, I mean, he like let his glasses down over his face, and looked over his glasses, and then pointed right at me. And then he was knowing that I was gonna get a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
That's why he did that. Huh?
And I was his friend.
I don't know. So I heard you almost bought the police impound.
Yeah, I was gonna buy a Kaiser Tough back in the days. Yep, for $500,000.
Why didn't you?
He spooked me in the end when we got ready to do the deal. Mr. Kaiser started talking about that, you know, if they found out I owned it, that they could take the contract back, and I just backed out. I backed out the deal. Big mistake though. I should have bought it. I should have bought it and stopped selling drugs. I had a chauffeur for a little while. When I was on the run, I used to wouldn't drive because, you know, I knew that the cops usually don't mess with the passenger in the car. They just usually talk to the driver. So I would have people to drive me around that was legit. You know, had driver's license and everything was straight with them. I done did so many things in my lifetime, though. You know, I can't remember everything. You know, people come up and say, man, I paid for their mom to have surgeries, and I don't know, it's just so much stuff. But, you know, I had a system where little Steve would ride around with me, and he would have like $30,000, $40,000 in the bag, and people would come up, and whatever, you know, their needs was, you know, I would give them money. Oh, you know, my son is in jail. Okay, send him $500. Oh, we behind on the house note. We can't pay the card. Okay, give him. So I did that all the time. You know, when I couldn't go, like right down the street from here was a gas station right on Figueroa in Manchester. I couldn't go to that gas station. When I go to that gas station, everybody would pull in. Man, fill my car up. You know, they would want me to pay for their gas, and I don't know. You know, you talking about a young dude, you know, 23, 24 years old with $1 million and, you know, making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 every day profit. You know, you fuck off a lot of money.
There was one time whenever, like, you couldn't really find stuff here, so you went all the way to Miami?
Yeah, that was in the beginning. Me, Big Log, Tone, we drove. Well, we flew down there. We flew down there with like 600,000, and we bought cocaine, man, and we drove it back from Miami. It's a long story. Yeah, it's in the book. Crazy. I gotta read the book, man. It's in the book. When you read the book, you'll see all the details of that. That's a story they didn't put in Snowfall. Y'all missed that one. But it'll be in my definitely in my TV series, the whole story, because it's gonna be exciting, you know. Really, you know, my story is a tale of how to come up, you know, how if you make certain sacrifices, you're gonna get certain benefits.